So this is the third in our series titled Heartfelt Brachot. And over the last 2 weeks, we've explored primarily the bracha of Dayan HaEmet, right? We spoke on Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron. And consequently, sorry, just bear with me 1 second. Consequently, it seemed to be very appropriate and very timely to discuss those brachot on that day. Let me just share with the screen again. Today, actually, we're going to be talking about a different topic. We're switching from Dayan HaEmet and a brief comparison with Shechianu, which we did last time, to a full-flung understanding of the bracha of Shechianu, or at least one dimension of the bracha of Shechianu. I just want to make things clear because we're going to be discussing this for the next couple of weeks. I am a huge, passionate advocate and fan of the Shechianu bracha. So if I just kind of ramble on, you need to say, hold on a minute, man. Okay, we're not all kind of like dancers for this bracha, but I'm a cheerleader basically. But let me tell you about Shechianu because it has different dimensions and each dimension operate differently. You okay, Noah?
The medicine that I take in the mornings tastes really disgusting.
Oh, I am so sorry. I thought I'm talking about Shechianu and you're looking a little bit worried. I'm thinking, no, we left Dayan HaEmet last time.
No, I just...
Okay,
keep talking. It's not you.
Okay. So sometimes we say Shechianu on a festival. We do so in order to acknowledge a new moment in time. It's really got little to do with our emotions, meaning whether you're happy or sad, you say Shechianu on certain festivals. There are other Shechianus we say which blend a certain joyousness and a certain seasonality. That, for example, is a Shechianu we say when new fruits are seen or eaten. That's a mix of, I'm really happy I got new fruits, but this celebrates the moving of the seasons, the renewal of the world. And there are other Shechianus which are all about joy. Now, that type of Shechianu is really the ultimate contrast to Dayan HaEmet. Dayan HaEmet isn't related to seasonality. It's related to expression of sadness. When you hear bad news, you say Dayan HaEmet. That's what we said last time. So Shechianu told us that when you hear good news, you should also say Shechianu. So far, so good. We're just doing small steps for our purposes. Now, within that rubric of we say Shechianu on happy occasions, there are a number of specific occasions that our rabbis listed to be appropriate for Shechianu to be said. One, which we'll get to in future sessions, relates to when you purchase new items, and that's a fascinating sugya. But today we're going to discuss something which is so pertinent to perhaps what some of you are going to be encountering today or in future days. The world is going to be discussing in the next couple of weeks, which is the Shechianu that we may be saying when seeing friends we haven't seen for a while. Now, just to tell you, this is a whole interesting area of Jewish law, and I myself was planning to write an article on the topic. And then just yesterday, I saw a really great article written by Rabbi Jonathan Ziering of Yeshivat Har Zion, which is now found on the Tradition website, which I encourage you to look at. There was also a great article by Rav Avram Stav that I'll be citing as well. So in recent days, 2 other people have been talking about this because, as we know, as lockdown is easing, some of us are going to see people we just haven't seen for literally months. And how does that all operate? So we're going to go through the classic sources, discuss what they're all about, identify points of disagreement, and then see how that applies to our situation today. So we have here our first source in front of us for Brachot Nun Chet Amud Bet. And we're told a simple teaching. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Says Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Haro'et Chavero la'achar 30 yom, Omer Baruch Shechianu v'kiyimanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. You say the brach of Shechianu. As previously mentioned, in almost all cases, though the bracha might not necessarily, though the Gemara might not necessarily cite the name of God when recording the bracha, it's just giving you the shortened version. Meaning, what they're actually saying was, when you see a friend that you haven't seen for 30 days, you say the full bracha of Shechianu, invoking the name of God. And then the Gemara goes on to say, La'achar 12 chodesh. If you see a dear friend, or if it just simply says friend actually, that you haven't seen for 12 months, you say the bracha of Machayei HaMeitim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Machayei HaMeitim. Now just pause here for a second. Any questions? So let's just make it clear. You haven't seen a friend for 30 days, you say Shechianu, invoking the name of God. You haven't seen a friend for a year, you say a bracha of Machayei HaMeitim.
Why?
Great question.
It's like, is it like they're dead? You haven't seen them in a year?
Okay, so that's relating to the second part. Let's just for the moment, any questions about the Shechianu dimension? Well, if Shechianu is about happiness, seeing a friend makes me happy, that makes sense. Why do we say a bracha of Machayei HaMeitim? Because you haven't seen a friend for a year. Well, the Gemara goes on to explain. Amar Rav, says Rav, En hamet mishtakeach min halev ela la'achar 12 chodesh. There's a general principle that you significantly forget those who passed on after 12 months. It cites a pasuk, Nishkachti kamet milev hayiti kichli oved. I've been forgotten like the dead from the heart. I was as if I was a forgotten and lost vessel. And it seems to suggest that when you haven't seen a friend for a year, they become forgotten from your heart, just like a dead person becomes forgotten from your heart. And so when you see them after 12 months, it's as if you'd forgotten them. It's as if they'd been ke'ilu, like dead, to your life. And you then say, Machayei HaMeitim, you've come back alive in my life. Mia, tell us a question.
What about, sorry, I've got a lot of noise behind me, but what about today when you like contact people and like FaceTime them and Skype them a lot before, like even if they're far away?
Mia asked a cutting edge question, which we're going to get to, which is, that makes sense. 100 years ago, 300 years ago, where not seeing a person literally means not seeing a person. But a lot of you, we've seen each other via screens every couple of days over this difficult period of time, right? Is this seeing? So that point is what Rabbi Ziring discusses in an essay, what Rabbi Stav discusses in an essay, and I'll be addressing towards the end of this year. So that's a really super important question. It's a halacha l'maaseh question. Because of course, if we say this is considered to be satisfactory seeing, then when seeing you face to face, real face to face, then I guess the bracha wouldn't be recited. But if this is seen as some kind of compromise seeing, inadequate seeing, then seeing people face to face would surely generate the possibility of reciting the Shechianu blessing. So we're going to get to that and address that and give what I hope is a fairly coherent response. So you see a friend that you haven't seen for 30 days, they say Shechianu, which I think all of us, by the way, are in that situation. They're friends of ours we haven't seen for 30 days. So far, we're not in a situation, they're friends of ours we haven't seen for a year. Actually, I say that, but don't forget, often when you're away in Israel, there are close people that you may not have seen, at least not face to face for sometimes that stretch of time.
Like
so
I have
that
friends,
second bracha applies. Sorry, go on.
I have friends who don't live in St. Louis who aren't in Israel this year, so I haven't seen them in a year.
Right.
Because I haven't been to New York in a year.
So we're going to try and consider that too, how that applies, to whom that applies, okay? Now, let's have a look briefly at Tosfot, because Tosfot's opinion, quoting the Ri, becomes an important factor in how this law is debated and codified. Because Tosfot, in a very brief remark, tells us, Omer Shechianu, Omer Ri, Rabbi Yitzchak gives an opinion, that is, Davka Chavero HaChaviv Alav. This means a dear, dear friend of yours. About Be'inan Acher Lo, but a kind of regular acquaintance, nah. Basically, what the Ri is telling us is, this bracha is really beautiful and wonderful, but We're talking about seeing somebody that you truly missed. We're talking about somebody that you truly cared about. That kind of person who is chaviv to you, right, whom you haven't seen for 30 days, which drives you crazy. You haven't seen them. You haven't seen them for a year. It drives you insanely crazy. According to the read, that's the case that we've been discussing here in the Gemara. Now, just as a quick thing, and we're going to return to this. I know when we were young, we used to kind of make lists of who is my best friend, who's my best friend, who's my almost best friend, and I've got 3 of those, and I've got 12 of my close friends who are almost like my best friends, so I invite them to a birthday party, but not for the sleepover. You know this kind of list we all had, right? So the question is, who makes the cut, right? And I just want you to ponder, because the poskim discuss this. Imagine you see 2 friends, yeah? And one is a best, and one is an almost best, right? And so, like, you want to say Shechion for the best, and the almost best, it's just like, it's nice to see you, but like, I wouldn't have minded not seeing you for a while. So how do you get around that? Do you fake it, right? Or
Just say
just...
Shechianu and don't specify who you're saying it for.
Okay, that's very sweet, but surely you need to have eye contact with at least one of them. You're like, imagine you got 2 people like, I'm Shechianu. Yeah, you too, mate. All right, so I just want to raise the point that there are social awkwardnesses that can arise from this bracha, which are not ignored by the poskim. In fact, they're actually discussed in great detail, which lead to some of them actually minimizing and marginalizing its usage. So far we've been told, you see a friend, according to Tosfot, a dear friend after 30 days of seemingly not seeing them, you say, Birkat Shechianu. Same rule seems to apply with Machei Metim. Okay, Ad Kan in the Gemara and Tosfot. Let's see how the law is codified in the Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch basically takes these 2 pieces of the puzzle and fuses them together. And Rav Yosef Kara writing here says, Haro'ed chavero la'achar 30 yom, Lashon Gemara, right? He says, a person who sees their friend after 30 days, Omer Shechianu, you say the Shechianu bracha. Again, when we say Shechianu, we mean that the totality of the blessing with a bracha, with Shem Hashem. V'acharei Yud Bet Chodesh, and after 12 months, Mevarech, they bless, Mechei Meitim. V'hu shechaviv alav harbeh b'samech b're'iyato, right? And this is, shall we say, conditional on the fact that this friend is dear to you. And the key word is v'sameach b're'iyato. Now, it's important to note that the notion of simcha was implied by all the prior sources. But in source 1 and 2, in the Gemara and Tosfot, is the word simcha invoked? No, it's kind of like implied, but it's not invoked. The Shulchan Aruch makes it clear that it's all about the simcha of seeing them. Now, just to take a step back, this is, I explained before that there are different categories of Shechianu. Some which are time-rooted, some which are a blend of time and joy-rooted, and others just simply expressive of what we call simchat halev. By using this word, the Shulchan Aruch is affirming to us, is clarifying to us, that this bracha is all about simcha. Now, I should say one more thing, and there is tremendous debate about this, and we're going to see this in future weeks in relation to the purchasing of clothes. Is simcha objective or subjective? This is a serious question. I'd love to hear from you all. Is joy a subjective quality or is it an objective quality? Is there like a measure of joy? You know, like on Leila Seder, some people say you have to have this size matzah, you have to drink this amount of wine. Is there a measurable quantity of simcha? What do you think? Right, you're shaking your heads. And that's a super important remark. Because when you have brachot whose definition emerges, when you have brachot whose usage is rooted in the concept of simcha, and when simcha is subjective, only that person can know if that person should be saying that bracha. Meaning, I don't know how you feel about that friend in this moment. Only you know. And so the simcha-oriented, the simcha-centric nature of Birkat Shechianu makes this blessing so subjective. Now, do you remember last time we discussed an interesting ruling as to whether somebody else can say Dayan ha'emet for me? Do you remember that debate? We quoted the ruling of Ben Zion Uziel. And he said, just as each individual at the Levaya has to cut their own kri'ah, has to cut their own clothes, every individual also has to say their own Dayan ha'emet. Why? Because Dayan ha'emet is an expression of loss and of anguish and of pain from that person. And my feeling may be different to your feeling. Similarly, too, my joy is likely to be different to your joy. So far, so good? Zoe, you with us, man? It's right in the afternoon. Okay. Well, I think her screen's just gone a little bit stuck there. Okay. No, it's not. Back together. Now, I want us to now look through the Mishnah Berurah's commentary to these words on the Shulchan Aruch. And we'll see some make sense and some obviously make sense, but are perhaps subject to disagreement. So I want us to just kind of go through and see what the Mishnah Berurah has to say on this codified law, and then see if other people disagree with the Mishnah Berurah. So can you see his source 4? I've listed the first 4 remarks of the Chafetz Chaim in his Mishnah Berurah commentary on the Orach Chaim section of the Shulchan Aruch. And he begins by making an important point, where it says Chavero, somebody who sees a friend, okay? And he begins by explaining the en chiluk ben ish li isha, meaning we're talking about a certain closeness, and it makes no difference whether it's a man or a woman. If, for example, a man were to see his wife, right, his mother, his daughter, his sister, since they're happy, they are so delighted to see them, they would say the bracha. Now, what's important to note here is, number one, though the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch talks about chavero, many other commentaries explain it means somebody who's important to you. And though friends are sometimes very different to family, you can be very, very happy when you see a family too, right? So the Mishnah Berurah is saying, if you see somebody who's close to you, whether it be a friend or a relative, then you say the bracha. And that would mean a woman can say a bracha and seeing a guy who is a relative or a friend they're delighted to see, or vice versa. Any questions about that? Okay. Now, it then goes on to say, if you see a great Torah sage, then you say the bracha of seeing a great Torah sage. And if that great Torah sage is also somebody whom you're friendly with, who you're close to, you'd also say Shechianu, as if to teach us that saying a bracha on seeing somebody does not negate the joy of seeing them, for which Shechianu is also invited. Ad kan Seif Katan Aleph. Let's move on to point 2. The Mishnah Berurah writes, La'achar shloshim yom, after 30 days. By the way, why 30 days? What's so magical about 30 days? Anybody? The Gemara gave a reason about 12 months, that somehow after 12 months somebody is forgotten from the heart, or meaningfully forgotten from the heart. What's the idea of 30 days? Any ideas? So I'll tell you something interesting, and it's something I encourage you to ponder. If you analyze certain halachot, you can learn rules and perspectives which apply far, far more broadly in Jewish teachings. Specifically, if you look at the laws of Avelut, the laws of mourning, and this is why it's interesting to contrast Shechianu with Dayan ha'emet, you'll know that in mourning, a person is in the most stark expression of mourning the day when they bury their dead. And then we're told that within the first 3 days they have more heightened restrictions in terms of mourning rituals. And within the first 7 days they have very specific restrictions. That's what we call Shiva. And then there's a period of time called Shloshim, 30 days. A lot of people then do a commemoration on the Shloshim. And then, of course, towards the end of the year, people do commemorations of the Yortzeit after somebody's passed away. So just as the laws of mourning have certain periods of time where emotions are most palpably felt and expressed, that means singular days, 3 days, week, a month and year, so too, we talk in both the relation to the laws of Shechianu and other places, that our, shall we call it, our soul has a memory that lasts only certain amounts of time. Now, the Gemara alluded to the fact that a person's memory in the heart can basically be almost erased after a year. But you know, there's an interesting halacha. How often do we have Kriyat HaTorah in the week? What's the regularity of Kriyat HaTorah in the week?
Like every 3 days.
Beautiful.
Oh, isn't it because you can't go 3 days without water, so you can't go 3 days without Torah?
Absolutely. So that's the Chazal's reading of the story of Bnei Israel as they leave Mitzrayim, go 3 days without water. From there we learn, similarly to you can't go 3 days without Torah. But underpinning that is the idea that a soul needs to maintain a certain sharpened memory that needs to be refreshed after 30 days. But just as we have the 3-day rule and we have a weekday rule, we also have a month rule. And so it is predicated that the laws of Shechianu about seeing a friend are there to teach us if you haven't seen somebody for 30 days, something is profoundly missing in your life, right? Something is ebbed away from your local memory, right? And by seeing your friend again, that's all the better.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, now, that's the second point of the Mishnah Berurah. Let's now move on to the third point of the Mishnah Berurah. So what does the Mishnah Berurah now tell us? La'achar shloshim, after 30 days, Meri'iyah rishona. If you haven't seen a person for an entire 30 days, then you say Birkat Shechianu. Now comes the interesting question that we're going to come back to with the Aruch HaShulchan. What happens, asks the Mishnah Berurah, if during the 30 days you've received a letter from that person? Before reading on, Zoe, what do you think? Would you say Shechianu now after seeing them after 30 days? You're thinking no. You're saying that by receiving a letter, it negates the sense of absence. And as a result of that, you wouldn't say Shechianu. Very interesting. Mia, what do you think, Pete? She's about to take off.
I think you still would.
Mia disagrees with Zoe, by the way. I just want to say, she just disagreed with you, my friend.
Mia, I'm excited for you to say Shechianu when I see you next time.
Amen, my dear. Okay. So this is, by the way, a major question which, as mentioned before, was recently addressed in an article by Rabbi Jonathan Ziering, another online article by Rabbi Stav, and I myself will be addressing it in just a moment. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ve'im kibel mimenu tav, right? If a person has received a letter from that other individual, from their friend, or sha'anashim hodiyu mishlomo, or friends have told you how they're doing. You've heard that this person's doing this thing or that thing. Yesh de'ot ba'acharonim. There are different opinions amongst the acharonim. And then ends the Mishnah Berurah's remark on this point, V'safek brachot lahakel. What does that mean, my friends? Safek means?
Doubt, blessings, community.
Not without hey. Lakel like kula, like makel, to be lenient, right?
Oh.
There's a general rule of thumb, which is since almost all blessings are rabbinic, when you're not sure whether to say a blessing, then best not to. So what the Mishnah Berurah seems to say is, since there is a debate whether to say Shechianu, if within a 30-day period you received a letter from your friends, best not to, because Safek Brachot Lahakel. Because if you were to, perhaps, for example, you'd be taking God's name in vain. That's a kind of the implication of the Mishnah Berurah. So who was right on this point? Let's just say, Zoe seems to be right. Zoe Paskins like the Mishnah Berurah. There we go. We're going to see there's an alternative opinion that we're going to return to in just a moment. Let's now continue though with the Mishnah Berurah. Omer Shechianu, you say the Shechianu blessing. Chol elo brachot hu b'shem malchut. He says, don't forget, when we say blessing, we mean invoking the name of God, not just saying Baruch Shechianu K'imanu L'Ganu Zeh, which often people like throw out just to express that they're happy on a particular occasion. Now, the final point that Noah asked is, why do we say Machea Meitim, right? After not seeing a friend for a year? Now, the Gemara brings a pasuk to say that people's memories is kind of eroding from your heart after a year. But the Mishnah Berurah says, "V'tam bracha zukata b'chidushei agadot." He seems to be quoting the Maharsha. "Lefi b'chol shana adam nidan b'Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim," because every year a person is judged in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. They're going to live for another year, and if they do live for another year, it's literally you're affirming the fact that they are still alive. So he takes that in a much more literal sense of the word. Okay? The Gemara seems to be talking about that kind of like emotional memory or spiritual memory that I was talking about earlier. Whereas the Mishnah Berurah seems to be saying, I wasn't sure if you were alive or dead. God gave you life again. Any questions about the Mishnah Berurah? We're going to return to that question about the letter in a moment. But chutz mizeh, everybody happy with that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's see the Aruch HaShulchan. And you may well know that oftentimes the Aruch HaShulchan takes a slightly different approach to the Mishnah Berurah. In fact, many people say that they are kind of like fundamentally different attitudes of the Mishnah Berurah and Aruch HaShulchan to determining Jewish law, with the Mishnah Berurah being much more rooted in text law, and Aruch HaShulchan being much more rooted in, shall we say, lived law. You may have read Rupture and Reconstruction by Chaim Soloveitchik, who is seen to be really the person who put together that blueprint of contrasting the two authorities. But let's now see how the Aruch HaShulchan looks at this halacha. And he says, "Haroeh et chavero shechaviv alav v'samech b'riyato me'od, im yesh lo 30 yom shelo ra'ah u'mevarech shechianu." Same rule. You see a dear friend they haven't seen for 30 days, right? Say Shechianu b'shem malchut, and you say the name of God, and he mentions, you say Machaya Meitim after 12 months. Now he comes along, and can you see where we're reading from here? Just for you to note this. Now he comes along, v'zeu כשלא היה מכתבים ממנו, אבל כשקיבל ממנו מכתב, אינו מברך מחיי מתים. Now, what it says is, this implies that, were one to have received a letter from a friend within 12 months, you wouldn't say the Machaya Meitim. Why? Because a letter indicates a person is alive. But continues the Aruch HaShulchan about le'inyan Shechianu. But regarding the Shechianu blessing, en chiluk, makes no difference whether you received a letter or didn't receive a letter. Afilu kibel michtav b'toch 30 yom. Even if you did receive a letter from them within the 30 days, hatam de birkat Shechianu mitoch simchat hariyah. The whole point of saying Shechianu is, I'm delighted to see you. And guess what? Reading a letter ain't seeing. So what the Aruch HaShulchan basically says is, dear Mishnah Berurah, I disagree with you. I would agree that a letter thwarts the appropriateness of saying Machaya Meitim within a year, because now you know they're alive. But I disagree that receiving a letter thwarts the appropriateness of saying Shechianu, because Shechianu is about the joy you have in seeing a friend, and you haven't seen the friend. Capish? Yofi. So I just want to say, Zoe's looking a little bit frustrated because Mia, just all of a sudden, her opinion seems to be supported by the Aruch HaShulchan. That's why she's smiling, right? So Zoe's going with the Mishnah Berurah saying, well, if you heard from them, that undermines the Shechianu. The Aruch HaShulchan says, if you heard from them, it undermines Machaya Meitim. Shechianu, you still say. I don't mean to be unkind to Zoe, but I agree with him, Aruch HaShulchan. Sorry about that. For all sorts of different reasons, and we're going to get to that now. Now, the question asked by Mia earlier on is, what happens if you have seen somebody? Look, right now, we are giving an online shiur, and I can see you. So is this seeing? So let's read the words of Rav Ovadia Yosef, okay? Truth is, a number of authorities address this, but a lot of them address their points as a follow-up to his remarks. And he writes in Yechaveh Da'at, he writes in his response to Yechaveh Da'at, and this is his summary paragraph, and then we're only going to quote some of it. Somebody who hasn't seen their friend for a period of 30 days, and this is a dear friend, and this would apply also to a parent or a teacher, or another relative, or your son, your brother. Remember, the Mishnah Brachot talked about it in terms of mother and wife and sister. He's talking about father, whatever. The key point is this applies to relatives, this applies to friends. Sorry, he goes on to say, wherever you're delighted to see them, you should say Shechianu. Again, I just remind you, we're going to get back to that. Remember, that could cause tremendously awkward things if, for example, you really like some members of the family and less others, right? So, like, did you say Shechianu for seeing Auntie Rini? No, I don't particularly like Auntie Rini. You don't really want to say it. That could be bad. We're going to come back to that. Now, he goes on to say the following. Somebody hasn't seen their friend for 12 months, right? And within that period of 12 months, they haven't received a letter or a phone call, right? And they haven't heard any news about them, then you'd say, but then he goes on to clarify, so he agrees with Aruch HaShulchan. If you haven't seen a friend for more than 30 days, okay, but you have received a letter, so you wouldn't say, so in fact, you haven't seen a friend for more than a year, but you have received a letter, then you wouldn't say Machei Meitim, but you would say Shechianu. Now, here he asks the key question that you raised earlier on, which is as follows. Here, I'm just going to highlight where we're reading from. ויש להסתפק בדין הרואה את חברו לאחר 30 יום בטלוויזיה, בשידור חי, אם יברך עליו שהחיינו. What happens if you see your friend after 30 days, but not in real life, but on TV? Maybe even a live TV. Now, when he talked about live TV, they didn't have FaceTime, WhatsApp, or Skype, or Zoom, but he would be saying the same question. What if I hadn't seen you for 30 days, right? And I see you like this, do I get to say Shechianu? He says, so he then tries to extrapolate a principle from other areas of Jewish law. Somebody who sees a king on TV, you know you're supposed to say a blessing when you see a king or queen, right? So somebody sees a king on TV, lo yevarech, they shouldn't say a blessing. So does Dayan Weiss make a ruling like that, etc. And he quotes other sources, etc., etc. And he says, I've also discussed it in detail in my book, Yabia Omer. But then he says, Mikom Makom, Safek Brachot Lakel. At the end of the day, though, as we said before in the Mishnah Berurah, we're dealing with blessings. We're talking about rabbinic blessings. When you're not sure, sometimes best not to do so. And then he raises one final question, and we're going to then try and bring things together. What happened if you listen to the voice of a friend on a phone or on a radio? Do you say the bracha? Now, the question is, what's the rule if you hear their voice but you don't actually get to see them? Don't forget when the Torah describes Mamad Har Sinai, it talks about seeing the sounds, which is a fascinating citation. he says a person who hears the voice of a friend should be delighted, would want to say a blessing, certainly if they see their friend on TV. He says, I'm not so sure about the logic of this authority of the Shalosh Teshuvot of Hayam Gadol. And as a result of that, it seems to be based on Rav Ovadia Yosef that just hearing somebody's voice doesn't suffice to say Shechianu, and merely seeing somebody on a screen does not suffice to warrant saying Shechianu. However, more recent authorities, I mentioned two articles by Rabbi Ziring and Rabbi Stav, take a slightly different view. And this is what Rabbi Stav writes just a couple of days ago. And here is his source 7. Yesh makom lomar sha'af im haynu mevarchim al riyad bevideo. One could say that even if you were to say a bracha shechianu, seeing a friend via video, ein bakach kadei limno bracha mifgash mamashi. This wouldn't undermine the value of saying shechianu when later on seeing them face to face. Because the whole idea of waiting 30 days between saying this blessing, Noada was established there'll be a sense of renewal when you see a person. Even if a person's seen a friend via video, there is room to say that you should say the bracha of Shechianu on seeing a person physically. So let me summarize how I interpret what Rabbi Stav says and what Rav Ovadia Yosef says, and give you some clarity about this question that you asked. Imagine in the next few days or weeks, you're about to face see friends whom you haven't seen via video. Then I would 100% say you should say Shechianu if they're close friends. The truth is, though, in most cases, you would have probably spoken to those close friends where possible, and you probably would have seen them via video. However, I agree with Rabbi Stav, which is video seeing isn't the same as seeing. And especially based on my understanding of Shechianu bracha, it's important to note that Shechianu is a subjective bracha. Listen, it's nice to see you guys on the screen, and I know that you've been seeing each other on screens on a regular basis. But what I can be sure of is when you see each other face to face, it's a whole new level of emotional experience. And that's the sense of dearness that Tosfot was really talking about. It wasn't just dearness in terms of the closeness of the relationships. It was a dearness in terms of the joy feeling that closeness, which comes through seeing a person face to face, being able to not just wave to them, perhaps even hug them and say, I've missed you. And so
if we
go on, yeah, Zoe, please.
if we're living in a world where like we still can't hug people because of social distancing, and
You don't need to say, you're meant to hug to say the bracha. Just seeing is itself considered to be sufficiently compelling. Correct.
Okay.
Well, because also if you're going to say that seeing someone over a screen is like satisfactory seeing, so you wouldn't say Shechianu if you've seen them on a screen in the past 30 days. If you don't FaceTime somebody for 30 days, then like, would you say Shechianu? Like opens up that can of worms also. Which
I would say you would, but I think it's a little bit, it makes sense to compare quality of seeing versus quality of seeing. And I'm well aware of the difference. I agree with the Aruch HaShulchan's difference about the letter that tells me that person's alive, and the difference with Shechianu, which is about subjective joy. And so, listen, it's nice to see your face, right? But it's a whole different moment when genuinely seeing a person's face. You know, my kids, I mean, it's a whole different thing. My children don't live away from home for months on end, but they do live away from home for weeks on end. My two oldest daughters live in Ulpana, right? So in the past few weeks, obviously, they've been staying at home. But on a regular basis, I see them once or twice a week. They're home every other Shabbat, and for one night or so a week. And I have to tell you, I miss my daughters so much, even though they're not far at all. They're only a few minutes away or half an hour drive away. And seeing them physically is a whole different thing to seeing them via a phone, which I do obviously on a regular basis. We talk, we message, we call, etc. It's different. It's like comparing a video of seeing the Kotel and just being there. You know, you can see a video of seeing the Kotel and say, yeah, I know that place. I know that space. I remember those feelings and those sights and those smells. And then you're there and you say, Eino domeh. You can't compare between what was seen via the screen and what was seen in real life. The same with so many other aspects of our lives. And we all spent so much time in front of screens in the past few weeks. But we shouldn't fool ourselves. There is something so majestic, so wonderful about seeing people in real life. And that's why, even though I've continued to teach all my classes, Eino Domet, utterly incomparable, to sit in my office and teach students from around the globe with little kind of green squares around your faces, right? Be in the same room as you and feel the energy of people in a room. That's why we have this din of Brov Am Hadrat Melech. There's a preference to always be in a place where there's a mass gathering of people, because people and that presence of souls in one physical space has a quality of energy which is incomparable to anything else. Brov Am teaches me that digitized seeing is not quite the same as physical presence. So I agree with Rabbi Stav. I agree with Rabbi Ziring. I agree that even if you've seen, I believe you should say a bracha. Some people would err on the side of caution. That's kind of how Rabbi Bad Yosef says. I take a different view overall about Birkat Shechianu, and I say it's a subjective bracha. And if you feel it, you should say it. However, I did say that before the end, we'd talk about the social awkwardness question. And a number of poskim do discuss this. I just want to give you one example of this. And this isn't meant to be the final word on the shiur. I just want to make it almost a word of kind of quasi-caution. And this comes from the oral rulings of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. And he says, when asked a question of nowadays, should we say the blessing of Shechianu when seeing friends? These were apparently his words. Kayom anachnu chayim ba'olam shel sheker. Today we live in a world of sometimes deception or just not being true to ourselves and others. And if we actually did recite these blessings, even though of course they're written in the Gemara and codified, somebody really doesn't like somebody else, I mean the word soneh means hate, would actually say it in order to flatter them and to try and find favor in their eyes. He's not the first to mention this sense of what happens when there are people actually don't particularly care for. Especially there's a larger social gathering. How do you get by with this? His suggestion is, if you're feeling it, fine, say the bracha, but say it quietly. Meaning, once you make a display about it, you can offend people. Rav Eliezer Melamed talks about this similarly in Pinei Halacha, why a lot more rabbis are lenient on the bracha of Shechianu and seeing friends, out of the worry that you're going to offend somebody that you didn't say for her and you did say for her. So I personally like this idea of say it. Definitely say it. But say it quietly. Don't make a whole big show of it when there are others around. Obviously, one-on-one, you can, because that's the genuine moment. One-on-one is where a person can really, truly express how they've missed a friend. And I genuinely have a list of friends that I can't wait to see them and say Shechianu. Because I talk a lot about the bracha, my friends in my neighborhood know. Like that when I actually get to see them, boy, there's going to be a lot of blessings being recited. So, but Gadol, what we learned here is a very, very profound aspect of Jewish teaching. Namely, that Jewish law, especially the framework of Dayan Hamet and Shechianu, is concerned with the human experience and empowers each of us to express our moments of loss and especially joy through the invocation of the name of God. And I want to add just one final thing, and then I'm going to wrap up. Feel free to add your points. Why do I find it so profound that the word Shechianu is applied not just to festivals and not just to buying new things, but especially to friends? Let's think what the actual word Shechianu means. It means you've kept me alive. I think friends keep us alive. I think there's been a lot of discussion in recent weeks about loneliness. And those who don't have those who care about them can often feel hopeless. Even a friend whom I haven't seen for a while, but I know cares about me, gives me hope, gives me chizuk. And when I see them, I say to them, thinking about you kept me alive. I think that's really the message of Birkat Shechianu. That true friends who you truly care about, who for whatever reason you haven't physically seen, knowing that they care about you gives you koach, gives you energy to live. And so when we see them, we say to them, thank you for that. We say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thank you for the gift of friendship. We acknowledge how important Chaverut is, how important friendship is. So that's what I've got to say on this point. Any thoughts, reflections, questions, insights?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you see a friend, if you see a friend that you haven't seen in 30 days, but they're not close enough or dear enough that you would say Shechianu, but you see them and they say Shechianu for you, should you say Shechianu back?
Listen, this is that meaning. That's the whole point of the remark of Rav Shlomo Zalman. Oh, it becomes weird. So them saying out loud kind of corners you. Now, if that were to happen to me, I'd say Amen, and to you too, my friend, right? And just move on, right? And hopefully that they wouldn't be some kind of really, really strict person I'm waiting for my Shech. But that's the point. If this becomes a game, it takes every expression of genuineness out of it.
Right.
But it's not about, let's just give a completely different comparison. When I was young, I obviously I didn't really think this, but it was just seen to be the way that when you gave Mishlach Manot, you'd give and then you'd receive. It will be almost like an exchange, a barter. I take my friend Mishlach Manot, I must give to this person. There'd always be that embarrassing moment when people give you and you haven't got for them, or you've given to them and they haven't got for you. But Mishlach Manot shouldn't be a barter. It should be, I care about you. I don't need anything from you. I just want to say I care. The moment we believe that the person we are expressing kindness to has to give back that kindness, I think there's something profoundly lacking in the original gesture, in the original expression. Me saying to my friend, and don't forget, who's a bracha to? Is it to my friend? It's really a bracha to God about this moment of seeing a friend. That's what bracha is. We don't pray to friends, we pray to God. I think God, it's so good to be reconnected back to this person. And that's why I think with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's advice kind of makes sense. It's nice for the friend to hear it, but really it's an expression of thanks to God. Once it becomes almost kind of like political, social currency, it becomes a bit weird. Did you say Shechianu for her? Now, obviously you don't care about her that much. If you didn't, it can become again a little bit strange. Any final thoughts? Anyone else? Just to end where we began, which is I just can't wait for a time when we can actually come back and learn face-to-face properly. Not because this isn't special, but it isn't quite the same. And that's the message that we learn about from the rulings of Rav Ziring and Rav Stav, and my opinion, I suppose, as well. Yofi, you should all have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.